Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today's masterclass. I'm really excited to have everyone here. I've got Angela Smith from Angela Smith Coaching, who's an entrepreneur and also works with assisting other entrepreneurs in growing their business online. So some of you may already know her, some of you may not. So welcome. And welcome, Angela, and thanks for taking the time to share this space with me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So today we're going to go through how to actually put some strategies together and what you can potentially do to grow your business online, whether or not you're currently using the online space, whether you're a small or medium business, or whether you're new to online space, and how you can actually get started in doing so. Obviously, with current economic circumstances and with everything that's happening globally, now is the time to be able to start growing your business online, or refining what strategies you are currently using in how to be able to do so. So we'll get started. Firstly, Angela, I just want you to just quickly introduce yourself and tell everyone exactly what you do, who you are, and where you've come from.
Sure. Yes, as to add to your introduction, most of you know me, Angela Smith, business and marketing strategist, and I work with female entrepreneurs primarily and service-based businesses, helping them to create and grow their business online. So a lot of behind the scenes tech automation and a lot of developing strategies for them to actually connect with people on a deeper level and connect with the people that need their services.
Amazing. So tell us why you would need to utilize online marketing in general, or even now, specifically now in these times.
Well, look, I mean, in the current crisis that we're facing, and, you know, there's the obvious reason that everybody pretty much is at home, spending a lot more time online. You know, there's been a 70% increase in the amount of time spent on social media and online. So you have a unique opportunity now to get in front of more people, is the first thing. And, you know, a lot of businesses who aren't online or who don't have a strong online presence have been really caught off guard by this. So I'm speaking to a lot of business owners who, for example, don't have their customers' email address. A lot of service-based businesses who have relied on providing face-to-face services and contacting by telephone, you know, to book appointments or consults or services. And when their business has literally closed overnight or in a very short space of time, they've been really caught off guard in now facing the question of, what do I do? How do I contact people? Do I contact people? Do I just kind of sit on my hands and ride this thing out? So I guess it's the perfect example of why you need to have an online presence, so that no matter what the circumstances are and what the business environment is, you're able to stay connected with people, you know, no matter what happens. I think the other reason as well is that a lot of people have more time on their hands, certainly. Some people are working from home, but people are really in an information research mode at the moment, you know, so they're spending a lot of time online looking at things they may not normally look at, or looking at things that they don't normally have the time to look at. So it's a really good opportunity to be expanding your customer base and expanding your presence and connecting with people that you may not normally have the opportunity to connect with. And I think, you know, to sit on your hands and do nothing is a big mistake, no matter what your business is. I know that some people are doing that because they feel uncomfortable about advertising their services or about trying to sell their services or market given the current climate. It's not that you can't do it, it's just that the way you do it needs to be tweaked a bit, you know, and you need to be quite careful in how you come across to people and how you connect. But I think to do nothing is definitely a mistake. I think that business is, you know, this crisis we're facing is going to change the face of business forever. There are new industries being created as we speak. You know, there certainly are people out there and pockets of money out there. There's a lot of angel investors, JV partners, and people who are investing in new startups that have resulted from this crisis. So I think that the business landscape is definitely going to change, you know, dramatically as a result of this. And I think you need to be a part of it. You need to be out there amongst it, and just being really, really flexible and being prepared to adapt and pivot as much as possible and as much as is required.
Yeah, some great points there. And I think, you know, having the flexibility in business to know where to change your approach and make some adjustments in order to know how to adapt to the current circumstances and current environment that's happening at the moment. So why now in terms of growing and serving your community, and how could you be doing it differently compared to what people have done previously potentially?
Look, I think as we all know, there's so much uncertainty right now in the world. People, in times of uncertainty, people are seeking leadership and people are seeking certainty. And so, you know, we have a unique opportunity to connect with people on a much deeper level. And one of the questions that I've been asked, you know, a lot this past 2 weeks, this past week in particular, is, do I just kind of continue on as normal about it? You know, people are so sick of seeing the constant news coverage, and people are so sick of talking about it, that maybe if I don't talk about it, that'll give me a point of difference and that'll make me unique. And I can see why, you know, I can definitely appreciate and understand, you know, that line of thinking. However, you know, one of the foundational principles, if you like, of marketing is to meet people where they're at and to enter the conversation that's going on in the mind of your customer. And if you don't mention it, or at least acknowledge the situation, you run the risk of people disconnecting and people feeling that you don't relate and people feeling that you don't care, or that you don't understand. So, you know, as, you know, always, you know, your marketing or your business, you know, I would hope is done with integrity and comes from the heart and wanting to serve people. And that should definitely be the focus for people right now is how can I serve people? How can I add value? And looking at what problems does my customer have now, like as a result of this situation we're facing. So, you know, the problems that you help your customer solve may not be a problem for them right now, but there are certainly other problems they have as a result of this situation we're facing and the lockdown and the self-isolation that you can help them with. So that would be the first question I think to ask is, what problems are my customers facing right now? And how can I help them solve those problems? And I think if you're coming from a place of service rather than selling, you know, it will really serve you in the long run. In times of crisis, when people are feeling vulnerable, you know, like any human being, we always remember the people that are there for us, you know, when we need help and when we're doing it tough. So if you can be there for your clients right now and you can be there and help them get through this, that will really serve you. It will strengthen the relationship, and it will also allow you to develop trust a lot quicker, and you know, a more long-term relationship. I think the other thing to keep in mind is just being appropriate, you know, for the situation. So, you know, we're all at home at the moment. So, for example, if you were a weight loss coach and you help women to lose weight, you know, you probably want to look. Everybody should be tweaking their messaging right now, and just being careful of both the written message and the spoken message, and also how you're visually representing what you do and your services. But for example, if you were a weight loss coach, you're probably not going to be wanting to post, you know, photos of people on a beach in a bikini saying like, you know, let's, you know, winter's approaching, you know, let's start getting your bikini body ready, because people aren't thinking about that right now. But those clients who you know, are focused on weight loss probably are going to be thinking, how am I going to get through this quarantine period or this lockdown period without putting on weight? You know, how can I, you know, how can I not undo all the work I've done, or how can I keep my weight down, or, you know, eat healthily? So that would be a way that you could pivot to still help them solve their problems as they are, you know, during this time. So I think, yeah, it's just about trying to look at what your clients are dealing with right now and how you can help them solve that problem. And you know, I'm not saying don't sell at all and don't market at all, but if you're focusing more on helping and serving and giving value and helping people solve little problems along the way, that always comes. You know, people will seek you out when they're ready. And when they're feeling a bit more certain. And then there are still people out there willing to spend, definitely. But yeah, that's, I think, you know, the focus, rather than coming from a place of aspirational, actually, and I have to, you know, Russell Brunson, you know, who many of you know, said this earlier in the month. He said, you know, the tone is a shift from aspirational to more protective. So rather than, if I use the example of the weight loss coach, rather than, you know, get this bikini body, it's about making sure you don't undo the work you've already done, staying healthy, looking after yourself, perhaps healthy recipes, perhaps exercises, perhaps accountability, support. So it's just a bit of a shift in the messaging that I think needs to happen, no matter what industry you're in.
So that's really, really important messaging. What else did you say? It was connecting and not just selling and serving. What was the other thing? And addressing what their problems are in their current situation right now, rather than the problems that they had before. So there was some really good key points there. Now, you also mentioned selling, and that not to sell as much during this time, obviously, and then people will seek you out if they are ready to buy, or when they are ready to buy. Now, obviously, from a business perspective, you would have to have a certain mindset, not to go out and hunt people down to be able to go and sell to them. So how would you you know, tweak your, say, marketing or your messaging in a way to be able to just add value and not to be able to just continuously sell? Because I've noticed that a lot with a lot of business owners, that even now they're still, you know, spamming and inboxing and messaging people and trying to push, when I believe that now is not the time to do that. Now is the time to provide value in being able to, you know, provide more options and resources for them. So how else would you suggest to be able to do that?
So look, as you said, it's not that you can't sell now, but when people are feeling really anxious and fearful and uncertain, and there's certainly a lot of that, we don't want to add to that. So as you said, there are a lot of people who are and scarcity in their marketing, and that today or this week, or I've reduced the price because of this, but it's only available today, and that's adding to people's anxiety, really. Like, we don't want to add to that. We want to make them feel more comfortable. So I don't want people to discount their value or so much discount their services dramatically. I think it's just being appropriate and being sensitive. I think the way to be giving more value is with resources. So what can you give to your customers or your clients to help them through this period? So whether that's some sort of resource, a checklist, a guide, a download, it might be a phone call each week. A lot of the businesses who don't have people's email address, I have been suggesting to them to call them, give them a call, just a check-in call to say, hey, just wanted to touch base with you and see how you're doing. Is there anything I can do in terms of the context of your relationship? So, I got a call from my hairdresser the other day. Obviously, they're closed, but I still appreciated that she took the time to call, and say, hey, how's everything going? How are you going in, during this time? And just make that connection. So I think, just connecting with people, giving them resources that can help them move through this time. And as I said, it's not that you can't sell. I think just be sensitive to people, to their anxiety right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, beautiful. So how else do you believe businesses can pivot and adapt to the changing times at the moment, whether or not they're currently online or whether or not they're new to the online platform?
Look, I think there's a few ways. You can pivot the services that you offer. So for example, as I said, like the weight loss coach, you can pivot the actual service you're offering. I had a bookkeeper, for example. A lot of businesses aren't going to want to be investing in bookkeeping right now. They're wanting to save, every cent they can. So we pivoted her offer to now be actually helping businesses to cut their costs, see how they can streamline their processes, and also, assess their situation to protect them for the next 6 months, so that they'll still be in business when this is all over. Navigating ways of assessing the various options to them, through the government stimulus packages. So that's another example of pivoting the offer. Pivoting the way that you deliver your service is probably the biggest one, because clearly if you're doing face-to-face services, that's not possible for most businesses now. So being more flexible in terms of the way you deliver. So looking at, video conferencing or online platforms. I think Zoom has had more growth in the last month than they had in the whole of 2019. So, it's an example of a lot of people, embracing that. And that's the thing. People are going to get very used to doing things online that they previously didn't think possible or didn't want to do. So a lot of businesses will be saying, are starting to sort of have conversations and say things like, whereas previously we thought we always had to do that face-to-face. And now, as we've been given no choice but to do it online, we've seen that it actually can work. So I think that's another aspect of how it's really going to change the face of business. Changing the way that you deliver your service, changing the service itself that you offer, and perhaps being flexible with payment terms. If that's possible for you. I mean, I realize that businesses all need to survive, so as I said, it's not that you can't sell, just being a bit sensitive and perhaps being a bit more flexible and acknowledging the situation that people are facing, and that for a lot of people, they'll be suffering financially right now.
Beautiful. Okay. So then how do businesses actually market in current circumstances in this crisis?
Look, as I said, I mean, I think it's if you've already got an online presence, if you already have a database or a list of subscribers, a list of your clients and customers, I think it's really important to be connecting with them through email marketing, so through email automation. And, you know, also, as I said, actually a phone call doesn't go astray if that's appropriate for your type of business. But I think just to be really mindful of the messaging that you're putting out there right now, and making sure that it's being sensitive to what people are experiencing and to the situation. I think it is a big mistake to not acknowledge, you know, what's going on, or people will see you as being insensitive and possibly tone deaf, you know, and they will disconnect. So I think making sure that your messaging is on point. If you don't have an email list, or you don't have the details of your customers, I've said to businesses this week, you know, ask people for their email address, you know, so that you can provide them with updates. That's a very manual process for a lot of businesses who have, you know, hundreds of customers. They have their phone number, not their email address, but, you know, you can see why now it's really important to have that, so that you can stay connected when, you know, when people aren't actually calling you to book consults or book appointments or book sessions. But yeah, email marketing, email automation, and increasing your social media presence is another big one. And I think, you know, in terms of your and creating the free resources that you can give to people.
And what would be your biggest tips in being able to build a social media presence, or to build it from where it is currently?
Look, I think the biggest thing, you know, many people will have heard the saying that content is king, you know, and if content is king, consistency is queen. And, you know, I have to admit that this is something that that I struggle with, because I'm doing it for everybody else and not always my own business. But I think consistency is one of the biggest things. And when you're looking at content, one of the reasons that people get, or businesses get, very stuck with creating content is they don't know what to say, and they kind of run out of ideas, or they'll be a little bit consistent when you know, events or things happen that they can promote, and then they kind of get lost of what else to write or what to post. So one of the things that the strategies that is good for creating content is looking at what objections your customers have about, or potential clients have about your services. What are the objections, the internal objections, the external objections that they might have to your offer, and you address those in the content that you put out. So that's definitely one aspect. The other aspect, I think it's a really good time to create a strategy, to create, you know, a strategy for your content creation and for your social media marketing. So, you know, there's a bit of a balance between offering educational content, motivational / inspirational content, content that's amusing or entertaining, and content that addresses your customers' objections or fears or worries, and that also solves their problems. But yeah, I think being consistent is probably the biggest thing. A lot of businesses I know get frustrated that they don't see immediate results when they start posting regularly, but it is really about the long game. It's always about the long game, and it does take time to build up a presence online on any of the platforms. anybody that does very well on a particular platform, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, will all tell you it's because they've put the time into it. They've put the time into being consistent, into building relationships, and into growing their community or their following. So yeah, it is a long-term thing, but this is the perfect time to be implementing those long-term strategies that we normally don't have time for, or that we normally kind of put on the back burner. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I know I've, myself included, I used to be able to struggle with, finding so many ideas to post about things and content and stuff like that. And I hear it time and time again, and constantly having to be creative in business is vital to be able to continuously evolve, I think. So I just want to share a resource that I actually use. It's called answerthepublic.com. And all you do is you just put in their problem, and it'll give you why, what, how, what if kind of questions that you can write content and what people are actually searching from there. So I've actually found that really useful. The only other thing that I wanted to be able to add is having a brand essence wheel, which I just came across only just a couple of weeks ago from another like a sales coach, in being able to sell, but also use content and marketing based on different perspectives on the branding of the business as well. So from the business perspective, the sales perspective, customers perspective, and even staff's perspective on the actual brand itself. So I found that really useful to be able to include in content, writing content and so forth.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think in that, I think that's what businesses can tend to kind of sometimes go a bit astray there is the old trying to be all things to all people. So, trying to appeal to everybody because they're afraid that if their messaging is directed towards one demographic or one customer avatar, that they're going to somehow lose out on all the other people. But of course, what that does is, when you're not speaking directly to your ideal customer, you don't connect on that deep level. You'll connect with people on a surface level, but you won't connect on that deep level where people feel that, she's talking directly to me. That person really understands me, and that person really gets my problem or gets where I'm at. So I think that's, a really important point to be clear on your brand essence and who your customer avatar is when you're creating content, so that you're actually adding value to those people. And of course, the more clear you get on who that is, the more you'll attract those people. And attract more of them, and attract people who are much bigger raving fans, to use, the Tony Robbins, terminology there. Rather than thinking about the people you might lose if you don't keep your messaging very broad and appeal to everyone. If you look at it from the perspective of connecting on a much deeper level with that one customer avatar, you'll connect deeper. People will feel more understood, and they will feel much more drawn towards you, that you are the only person that can help them solve their problem, or the obvious choice. I've got actually a really good template for amplifying content that I will upload into the group, Maria. It's very similar to Ask the Public, and it's just in a spreadsheet. You just answer a series of questions, and it generates all these basically topics for you based on your industry. So that's really, really helpful as well.
Amazing. So do you have any other, what are your top 3 tips then to get started online if someone's literally bricks and mortar and they're wanting to transition online, for example?
Look, the three basic,
I'm
if you
sure there's
like, the
lots of
three
stuff,
basic.
but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There are so many things, and once people often get started, with using software and automation, it can go on and on and on. The options are endless. But look, the basic, the kind of three basic tools that most businesses need to have, or in my opinion, need to have, are an email autoresponder, a sales funnel, and an online booking tool. And I guess the reason for that is that most people listening to this, or some, not sure how many people listening to this will know what sales funnel is. But how it differs from your website is that, people go to your website, they have so many options, they can click on a number of different things. And if they don't find what they're looking for, they'll often leave. And you have no way of connecting with that person again. If you have a Facebook pixel installed, you can possibly retarget them with advertising later down the track, but you don't have their exact details, don't have an email address or any way of actually personally interacting with them. So a sales funnel solves that problem. So when you have a landing page and you're giving something of value, so a free resource, a free checklist, a download, could be a webinar. There's lots of different types of lead magnets, as we call them, or freebies that you can give people in exchange for their email address. And that's a really good way of building your database of potential customers and continuing to retarget them and to remarket to them, regardless of what it is you're selling down the track. And the online booking tool, look, for a variety of reasons, it saves a lot of time going back and forth, trying to, check available times. It can be embedded onto your website. It can be connected to your sales funnel, depending on the purpose of what, of your funnel. And it can also then send out confirmations, for example, if you integrate it with the Zoom platform and you're conducting, if you're a business now that's going to conduct meetings or consults over Zoom or over video conferencing, and you have an online booking tool, you can set that up so that when people make a booking, a Zoom meeting is automatically created, and the customer will receive, confirmation email and reminders from Zoom about the meeting. So they're kind of the basic three things, an email autoresponder to capture people's email addresses and for you to be able to continue to communicate with them and update them with what's happening in your business. And again, when you're emailing them, it shouldn't really just be for selling. It's really about building that relationship, building trust, and getting them, letting them get to know you better. So yeah, they're the three basic tools that I usually recommend most businesses start with.
So it was online booking, free online booking link, sales funnel. What was the other one? Email list?
Yeah, email autoresponder.
Not autoresponder. Okay. So how do you use this time to exponentially grow your business?
Look, I think, as I said, a lot of businesses, are kind of going, oh, do we just sit on our hands now and wait for this to pass? I think the answer is definitely no. This is the time to be addressing all those things that you normally put to one side, or things you don't have time for, things you've been wanting to do or wanting to get around to but haven't had the chance to. A lot of business owners spend a lot of time putting out fires and responding to urgency, responding to the daily demands of running a business. And while that's certainly still there for a lot of people, just in a different format, people generally do seem to have a bit more time at the moment, some more than others. But look, using this time to yeah, do all the things that you haven't got around to doing, such as, you know, updating your website. You know, definitely one thing I would be doing, no matter what your business is focusing on what's called the front end of your funnel. So focusing on what free resources you can create to help people through this time. So free guides, free checklists, downloads, videos, anything that you can create, any resources you can share with your clients or your customers, to help them and to maintain the connection. So yeah, creating free resources, doing all the things you don't get around to, and definitely content creation. This is a great time to be creating a whole bank of content, and you know, scheduling it out. So Trello is a great tool for creating social media plans. I think you're a fan of Trello, Maria. I think we've mentioned that before. Trello boards are fantastic. They're very visual, you know, so, you know, they're really great for planning out your social media content across platforms. And even an old-fashioned spreadsheet is really good, you know. So having an idea of what you're going to post on what days, it takes all the guesswork out of it and a lot of the stress out of it. So that's, yeah, it's a really good time to be doing that, to be creating lots of content, writing blogs. You know, you can repurpose content a lot. You know, some of you know, you can you know, create a lot of content from one blog post or from one video. So yeah, looking at ways that you can create content, create lots of it, and have a bit of a bank of that, you know, behind you, so that you don't fall behind and so that you don't feel pressured about not knowing what to say, or, you know, not knowing what to post. What else? Yeah, I think just, you know, in terms of, if you use this time to focus on giving value and leading and being there for people, you will absolutely reap the benefits on the other side. As I mentioned earlier, you know, we all remember the people that are there for us in times of need, and when we're vulnerable, and you know, when things aren't so great. It's really easy to be there, you know, when things are good, but when things aren't great, it's during those times that that people, you know, it's not that we want to take advantage of people, but people are feeling vulnerable, and so they're really grateful and appreciative when you take the time to actually serve. So as I said, this is all kind of goes without saying. It's coming from a place of service and integrity, and you know, being a conscious business leader, a conscious entrepreneurship. It's not coming from a place of people are vulnerable. That won't serve anybody in the long run. It may make you a quick buck short term, but if that, you know, but it certainly won't serve you long term. But if you use this time to really give value to your customers, come up with resources to help them get through this, and to help them, you know, navigate their way during this time, you'll definitely come out so much stronger in the long term, and so will your business. Because if you use this time to be creating content, updating your website, putting in place some systems, so that yeah, if this were to happen again, God forbid, you'd be better prepared than you were this time. So looking at areas that this time maybe you could have done a bit better in, you know, as I said, for most businesses, that's just having an email list and having a way of connecting with customers other than just face-to-face.
Great. You said some really great points in there, and specifically on, you know, creating some systems or changing the systems that you already have, you know, in order to adjust to the times. One thing I wanted to touch on is sales and marketing. There's a lot of people that have a misconception out there that sales and marketing are the same thing, but I would love to hear your take on how do you differentiate the two, and how can people see that they are actually two separate things and not one thing?
Look, you're right, and that's a great question. Often we see those lumped together, sales and marketing. Look, sales is really about, in my opinion, sharing your solution to the problem. A lot of people, as you know, feel uncomfortable with selling. And a lot of people, again, in this time, feel even more so uncomfortable about selling. They're feeling like they shouldn't be selling. If you have a solution that can help people solve their problem, it's almost selfish not to share it. So for me, sales is about sharing your solution to a problem and being able to sell in a way that is with integrity and is ethical. And you always want your customer to feel like they're getting lopsided value, to walk away feeling like they got a really good deal. Marketing, on the other hand, is more about communicating that solution and connecting with people on a deeper level. So being able to show people that you understand their problem and connect with people so that they feel like, as I said, if people feel like you can articulate the problem better than they can, then you have a customer for life. People want to feel understood, and marketing is the way that you actually show people that you understand them. So it's the way you position your services and the way that you communicate what your brand stands for, the way that you communicate. Sales, I feel, is more about positioning and actually sharing the solution itself.
That's a great point. So marketing is all about how you communicate what you do, and then sales is all about the execution in providing the solution to that message that you were communicating, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, what are the key foundational points to have when building an online business?
Look, as I said, I think having an online presence is definitely the first piece. So making sure that you have a solid online presence. People these days will, no matter how they come across you, they'll look you up online. So and this is the problem with not being consistent. If you're not consistent with your posting, and people go and look you up online and they see that the last post you did was in 2015, their opinion of your business and your credibility is immediately immediately drops in their mind. So as you know, people make an assumption very quickly about who you are and about your level of expertise and credibility, and the level of trust that they have in your brand. So when we're not consistent, people judge us on that, and people go, well, is this a real business? Are they really good at what they do? Social proof is one of the biggest factors in people's decision making. So having you can go on about social media in particular for quite some time, but I will just say one thing on that point, and that is that having a Facebook business page is more about just having a presence. Social media platforms like Facebook generally want businesses to pay for the privilege of using their service. So while they'll allow you to create a profile for free, they're not necessarily going to show your content to a lot of people. You might have, over 5,000 people that like and follow your business page. Yet if you're posting regularly, and you look at your analytics, you'll see approximately anywhere between 10 to 40 people will be seeing each post. So between 10 and 40 people out of 5,000, it's not much. So it really is about just having a presence, having a professional presence, showing people that you're serious, you're credible, you're trustworthy, and that other people trust your business. So having, definitely having more people that like and follow your page is, in a lot of people's minds, a sign of being credible. And there are strategies you can use to elevate that with paid advertising for quite a low cost. And I'm not talking about buying likes or followers, but you can definitely do some advertising on Facebook to increase brand awareness, purely for the fact of elevating your credibility and your social proof. But yeah, having an online presence and posting consistently. And it's not that you have to be across every platform. I usually say to people, choose one and go deep on that. Whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, choose one and go deep on that. Still have a presence on the other ones, but depending if what your business is, of course, it may not be appropriate for you to have a LinkedIn profile. It may not be appropriate for you to have an Instagram profile, but for most people, Facebook is appropriate, and in many cases, LinkedIn, and still post, across both platforms, but choose one of them to really go deep on, and to really build your following there and your community. So definitely social media presence is the first, I think, important point. And the second one is having a funnel and a way to get people into your community so that you own that traffic. If you're relying on Facebook for your business, if you're not capturing people's details and you're relying on connecting with people through Facebook, like just through Messenger and things like that, whilst unlikely to happen, at this point, I would think, if Facebook suddenly shuts down and, your page is shut down or your profile is shut down, you've lost all those people and you have no way of connecting with them. So you really want to have an online presence, begin the conversation online, but then take it offline. And whether that's through personal contact or whether it's through email, whatever it is, establish the relationship online, but then take it offline so that you then capture your clients or your potential clients' details, and you own that information.
Amazing, beautiful. And I'm sure there would be people out there that would be curious as to what kind of budget they would actually need to be able to, build an online business or, increase their presence, let's say.
Sure. And look, that's the great thing. There are, out of the three tools I mentioned, of course, creating a social media profile is free. Creating a business page is free. The three tools that I mentioned, email autoresponder, a sales funnel, and an online booking tool, if that's appropriate for your business. There are free versions of all of those. And I think the one thing I will say there, a bit of a disclaimer, I guess, is and to be mindful of, when people are starting out online, one of the common misconceptions is that they start looking around at all these tools and they find one tool that does everything and they think, that's great, I'm going to go with that because it does everything. It allows me to book appointments. It allows me to create a landing page and capture people's email addresses. It does everything, and it allows me to have a funnel and take payments and everything. The problem there is that tools that usually offer everything were primarily created for one function, and they've then gone and added on other features to try and appeal to people. So, for example, In each of those categories, there's usually a budget option or a free option. And there's kind of a gold standard. You know, my general rule of thumb is that you want to get the best you can afford in each of those categories. And in my experience, it's certainly been that having a separate standalone product for each of those, having a separate email autoresponder, a separate sales funnel, a separate online booking tool, usually works the best. So for example, with your email autoresponder, the absolute basic kind of introductory product that a lot of people use is MailChimp. There is a free version of that, and that's perfectly fine, you know, to get, if you're just starting out and you want to kind of get a feel for it, and see how it works and see if it's something that you want to use in your business. MailChimp, yeah, it does have a free plan. I think their first jump up from the free plan is about $10 a month. It's quite inexpensive. But it's limited in you know, in functionality and capability. On the other end of the scale, you know, kind of the gold standard in email autoresponders would be Infusionsoft, and closely followed by a software called ActiveCampaign. Both of those can be a little bit pricey depending on where you're at in your business. So they have greater functionality. You're able to send much more sophisticated campaigns. You're able to have a lot of variables. You're able to allow for a lot of different scenarios and probably automate a lot more functions, you know, such as payments or decline payments or subscriptions. But you do pay for that privilege, you know. So MailChimp also has the ability to create landing pages, but they're not necessarily good at that. You know, that's not what they were created for. It's something they've added on to try and appeal to more users and try and capture more of the market. So yeah, you really want to get the best tool you can afford for the function that you're trying to execute. In terms of sales funnels, definitely the number one is ClickFunnels. There's really no question about that in my mind. You know, they also had an email autoresponder function, again, to appeal to more people. And they've recently, you know, decided to scale that back because they realize it's not what they're good at. Companies that try to add on more services and provide more functionality than what they were designed for usually find that they have a lot more bugs. There's a lot more things to iron out. They're not usually great at everything. So you really want to, go for the best with what you can afford and what your budget is. But if you are just starting out, you can definitely get a free email autoresponder, which would be something like MailChimp. A free online booking tool such as Calendly is a really good place to start. On the other end of the scale for online booking tools, you'd be looking at something like Schedule Once or Acuity. Again, much more functionality. You can automate a lot more of the booking process. But yeah, there's definitely something there for everyone, regardless of where you're at in your business or what your budget is.
Amazing, great. There's so many nuggets there that you shared over the last hour or so. So thanks so much. We're going to wrap it up. Is there anything you'd like to add? And then we'll take some questions from everyone else that's in the group.
No, look, I think that's it. You know, I think the overall message is, you know, yes, you can definitely continue to market now. You just need to really be mindful and sensitive of the current climate, and tweak your messaging, you know, appropriately. I think that the second thing is to look at what problems people have right now, and pivot your offer, pivot the way you deliver your service, pivot your, you know, your payment terms if that's possible. But look at how you can help your clients or your customers to get through this time, and what problems they're currently having as a result of this crisis that we're facing. and focus on the long-term game. As always, focus on building the relationship, giving them value, and rather than focusing on selling, focusing on actually expanding your customer base and expanding the number of people that come in contact with your business and your brand awareness.
Beautiful. Awesome. So anyone that's online, does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask Angela at all? Just unmute yourself and go ahead. No.
I've answered them all.
There was so much content.
So detailed.
Pretty amazing. Awesome. Well, thanks again. Thanks so much. Did you say you were going to put some resources in the group?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely, we'll put in the content amplifier and a list of resources that will help you create your online presence and further your business online. Fantastic.
And for any of those people who are wanting to access this recording, let me know and I can organise the recording for you so you've got that as a resource to go back to as well. Thanks so much, and have a great evening, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks again.
Thanks, Maria.
Bye for now.
Bye. Bye, everyone.